Hello and welcome back again to another episode of She's at It Again. My name's Tanya and this time we're going to be making an apple crisp, and this is with no processed sugar. And I think I know what you're thinking, some crazy xylitol, some kind of sugar substitute, but it's not. It's just honey and bananas. That's pretty much all the sweetener we're going to use. The inside of it is of course just natural fruit, and we're going to get started. So we have two. This is what I call a good ripe banana. This is a good ripe. This is not a rotten banana. This is a good ripe banana. It has perfect sweetness to it. So we're going to take two of these, put in a bowl. I don't want any strings in there. I'm not a fan of banana strings. Some people eat those without thinking of it, and I just can't. Even though it's going to be stirred up and mixed into this. And Zoe has now appeared at my feet because she hears the banana peel coming off. That girl loves her some bananas. But she's not getting any because she didn't even eat her breakfast yet. All right, we'll get those out of the way. I'm going to just take and mash these up a bit. The more ripe these are, the sweeter they are. So if you have one that's turned almost completely black, please don't throw it away. Take the peel off, stick it in a Ziploc bag, and place it in the freezer. And when you get ready to use it for something like this, just thaw it a little bit and move right on. It has so much natural sugar to it. Actually, it's easier to digest, from what I understand, the riper it gets. So green bananas, although you might be a fan of those to just grab and go and eat, and they look prettier, they look like fake fruit, but it's not as easy to digest as the ones that have at least brown spots on them. So we'll get that mixed up. I'm going to keep checking my recipe over here. To that, we're going to add a half teaspoon of cinnamon. No, we're adding a teaspoon of cinnamon because I'm doubling the recipe. So a teaspoon of cinnamon. We're going to add a half teaspoon of salt. Stir that in. It'll have some lumps in it, but that's okay. Just keep mashing. They'll work their way out if they need to. To that, we are going to add a half a cup of almond butter, and this is almond butter that does not have any sugar. It is just almonds, and I believe it has an oil in there as well, but I can't remember what the oil is. This is just probably Great Value brand, or maybe Sam's Choice, something like that, whatever our local Walmart store carries. It's hard to find organic almond butter. Well, it's not really hard to find, it's just hard to find one that's pretty affordable, but just got to be cautious. But read your label, see if it has sugar, and if it has sugar in it, it really doesn't need to. This the whole reason behind this recipe is because it doesn't have a processed sugar in it. All right, stir that in. Then we're going to add a half a cup of honey. And I buttered the inside of this before I put the honey in, so it's a little bit easier to come out, even though it's a really good tool for pushing stuff out, like honey and peanut butter and all kinds of stuff like that. Okay, give this a good stir, mix it really well. keeping an eye on my timer because I have something else in the oven too. And when I take that out, this is going to go in. I've used peaches in this recipe for peach crisp. I've used apples, of course, before. You can add raisins to the apples if you want. But one of our favorite is to buy organic frozen cherries. And this calls for frozen fruit, but today I'm just using fresh fruit. But blackberries or blueberries or anything like that, this is really, really good. The almond butter, for some reason, unless you're allergic to nuts, it just gives it the most fabulous flavor. It completes it. It doesn't just taste like a sweet dessert. It has that nuttiness to it. It's really delightful. Okay, to this we are going to add 2 cups of rolled oats. These are also known as old-fashioned oats, but you can actually use quick oats. Don't use instant oatmeal. That's not the same. Won't give you great results. So either quick oats or old-fashioned or just basically rolled oats. And these are organic. This is a gluten-free dish if you hadn't figured that out yet. As long as you, if somebody is truly gluten intolerant and it's a danger to them, you want to make sure that your oats are certified gluten-free, that they're not processed on any equipment that also processes wheat and items that do have gluten in them. So just be careful with that. But this is gluten-free. Okay, we'll set that aside. And in this bowl, we're going to put our apples that we've chopped up. This is a little over 4 cups of Fuji apples. These are Fuji organic apples, and Fuji's just consistently have a super sweet, good flavor to them. Now, I used to get mixed up in Gala and Fuji, and I'd think, okay, both of them have 4 letters. Was it the Fuji or the Gala? And I'd stand in the store and look at both and go, I don't know. And every time I would grab the Gala, and I would regret it when I got home. They weren't always bad, but they were just inconsistent. It wasn't always a good apple. Fuji's have consistently been a good apple for me every time I bought them. We're going to go with about half a teaspoon of salt in this. If you like a lot of cinnamon, go with a lot. If you like just a little bit, go with a little bit. But I'm putting pretty close to a teaspoon of cinnamon in that. I'm going to go with about 1/4 of a teaspoon of cloves. Now I'm just adding these extra spices to it just because that's what I like in things that are apple. Allspice is one of my favorite spices. Really good allspice. This is about 1/4 of a teaspoon of that. And I'm going to grate a little bit of nutmeg in that because everybody knows that nutmeg goes good with apples. And if you have a fresh nutmeg, you score higher than if you just have some in a shaker bottle. It really does taste better, trust me. To this, we're going to add a little bit of coconut flour to make it thicken a bit. Let me grab my spoon. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of coconut flour. Coconut flour really, really absorbs a lot of liquid in any recipe, so you don't want to over add any, but it's going to take the place of what you would normally use a cornstarch or a potato starch or even flour in if this were a recipe that had gluten in it. We'll just use our other spatula here and stir that around. Now you can add honey to this if you want to. It does not necessarily need honey. You've got sweetener in your topping over there. But if you desire, you can put a date syrup or chopped up dates, or even add raisins to this, or add honey to it. It's not going to hurt it in any way. But these Fuji apples are super sweet. I just tried a piece of them all ago and they're really fabulous. So you can see the coconut flour has been worked into the moisture of the apples. So we'll get our dish over here, and I'm going to put some coconut oil in this. I'll get on the back of my fingernails and then I'll rub it into the pan. I'm never upset when I have to coat something with coconut flour, just because it's wintertime and my hands are dry, and my hands love that coconut oil on them, and I don't normally even wash it off too often unless I'm just fixing to handle something that needs to stay clean, because it absorbs so nicely into your skin and it really does keep them a little bit softer. But that dry winter air inside your house is not very pleasant. I do the same thing with butter too, so I'm never upset when I have to handle the butter. All right, going to put our apples in. Let me do it this way so the camera can catch that. I'm so bad at this. Set that down, and then we're just going to kind of drop this in little blobs over the top of our apples. We're having friends over for dinner tonight, and this is going to be our dessert. Oops, looks like we need more on that end. It'll spread out a little bit when it cooks, not a lot. I wish y'all could smell this. This smells really good. Now before our guests arrive tonight, I'll pop this in the oven. This is going to bake at 375 for a full 45 minutes. Particularly if you're using frozen fruit, but I want the apples to get real good and done. And 45 minutes just has worked every time, no matter if I use fresh fruit or frozen fruit. But it's going to cook a full 45 minutes at 375 degrees in the oven. But I will cook it this morning. Right now it's before noon, and I'll just reheat it tonight right before our guests arrive, and it'll be hot after we eat dinner and get ready for dessert. That takes a lot of stress off having dinner guests if you can make as much of your dinner as you can ahead of time, and then just be basically reheating it before they walk in the door. Because if you're like me and you've ever just barely gotten it done by the time guests arrive, when they walk in the door, I'm ready to go take a shower and go to bed. I don't want to sit and visit. I don't want to do anything. I'm too tired. But with this way, it helps a lot. Okay, on top of this, as long as you're not allergic to nuts, I'm going to sprinkle some pecans. We have access to quite a few pecan trees in our area, and we always have pecans. My grandparents always had a pecan orchard when I was growing up, and I've just always had pecans in my freezer. We're going to top this with quite a bit of pecans. All right, this is ready to go in the oven. When our other item comes out, I'll pop this in and I'll show you what it looks like when it comes out. See you in a bit. Our apple crisp is out of the oven. I'm hoping you can see this. I'm gonna put it right up there in hopes that you can get a good look at that. You can hear it sizzling. This smells really good. You could top this with a yogurt sweetened with honey maybe, but we just eat it just like that. But I hope that you give this a try. If you have somebody that's super sensitive to some processed sugar, or you'd just rather use an alternative like honey and bananas to sweeten your desserts, this is a great alternative. Kids love this. You can put this in little individual ramekins and bake it off. And it's such a neat little treat, especially if you have dinner guests and everybody gets their own little serving. So hope you've enjoyed this recipe. We'll see you next time, and we look forward to sharing something else with you. Thanks.